The city sleeps, but danger lurks in the shadows. A thick fog rolls through the streets of San Francisco, swallowing the glow of streetlights and muffling the distant hum of passing cars. It is the kind of night that conceals secrets, the kind of night that allows a killer to move unseen. In the quiet, a car creeps along a desolate stretch of road. Inside, a young couple sits together, unaware that their night is about to become a nightmare. A figure approaches. A gun is raised. And then chaos. A sudden explosion of gunfire shatters the silence, sending shockwaves through the darkness. When the echoes fade, two bodies lie motionless. One will never speak again. The other, barely clinging to life, will become the only witness to a horror that defies understanding. This is how it begins. Not with a warning, not with a motive, just violence, cold and senseless. And then, the real terror begins. Because this killer does not vanish into the night like so many before him. He lingers, he watches, and he writes. Letters arrive at local newspapers, taunting, bragging, demanding attention. Coded messages hide within the pages, daring the world to decipher his secrets. The city reads his words and trembles. What kind of man revels in his own brutality? What kind of mind plays cat and mouse with an entire city? More than half a century later, we still don't have the answers. Only questions, only fear. And a name he gave himself. They were just kids, high school sweethearts, looking for a quiet place to escape the world for a little while. On the night of the 20th of December, 1968, 17-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and 16-year-old David Faraday parked along Lake Herman Road, a secluded lover's lane just outside Vallejo, California. What happened next would mark the beginning of one of the most infamous unsolved murder sprees in American history. Sometime after 11 p.m., their date turned into a nightmare. Witnesses had seen the young couple earlier in the night, but by 11:15, the scene was deathly silent. The bullet-riddled bodies of Betty Lou and David lay just feet apart, the surrounding darkness swallowing any sign of the killer. There were no signs of robbery, no apparent motive, only fear and confusion. David had been shot once in the head at close range, as if the killer wanted to make sure he didn't survive. Betty Lou, on the other hand, had run. 5 bullets to her back ensured she wouldn't get far. Investigators noted how she fell face down in the dirt, her blood soaking into the cold December ground. Panic crept through the community. This wasn't just another tragic crime, it was something worse. Senseless. Calculated. The kind of evil that left people locking their doors and looking over their shoulders. But for police, the scene was frustratingly empty. No fingerprints, no shell casings, just the chilling realization that whoever did this had vanished without a trace. Speculation ran wild. Was it a jealous ex-boyfriend, a random act of violence, or something far more terrifying, a killer who had just begun his game? No one knew it yet, but this was only the beginning. The killings didn't stop at Lake Herman Road. Less than 7 months later, on the night of the 4th of July, 1969, another young couple sat in a parked car, unaware that they were about to become part of a deadly pattern. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau had chosen a secluded spot in Blue Rock Springs Park, a quiet retreat in Vallejo. But in the darkness, someone was watching. A car pulled up behind them, its headlights flooding the vehicle. After a moment, it drove away only to return minutes later. This time, the driver stepped out. Without a word, he raised a 9mm Luger and fired. The attack was swift and brutal. Michael was shot in the jaw, shoulder, and leg. Darlene, hit multiple times, had no chance. The gunman turned to leave, but something stopped him. He came back and fired again, ensuring his message was clear. Then, he vanished into the night. But the terror wasn't over. Just before 1 a.m., a chilling phone call came into the Vallejo Police Department. A calm voice, almost casual, confessed to the crime. "I want to report a murder now, a double murder." He even referenced the Lake Herman Road attack, leaving no doubt. "I also killed those kids last year." Then, as officers scrambled to trace the call, the line went dead. This was different. This was deliberate. This was a killer who wanted attention. And he wasn't done. Weeks later, newspapers across the Bay Area received letters postmarked the 31st of July, 1969. 3 nearly identical messages sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. The writer claimed responsibility for both attacks, detailing facts that had never been released to the public. His words dripped with arrogance, mocking the police, daring them to catch him. At the bottom of each letter was something new, a strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it like the crosshairs of a gun. The Zodiac had arrived. The letters weren't just confessions. They were a game. In them, the killer included a cipher, a jumble of symbols, and letters he claimed would reveal his identity. He demanded the newspapers print his message on the front page or he would kill again. The coded message baffled authorities. Cryptographers struggled to decipher it. The public pored over it. The Zodiac's game had begun, and it was clear he was enjoying it. The taunting continued. More letters followed. More threats. He signed them with his new name Zodiac and his cryptic crosshair symbol. He wrote with chilling detachment, describing his crimes with neither guilt nor remorse. He even offered a chilling insight into his motives. "I like killing people because it is so much fun." As the weeks passed, the fear spread. The killer wasn't just a murderer, it was a ghost, a nameless figure striking at random, playing with the police, feeding off the terror he created. It began with an indecipherable puzzle mailed to 3 newspapers in July 1969. A grid of letters, a mind twisted enough to toy with an entire city. The Zodiac wasn't just killing. He was playing a game, and he wanted everyone to know it. The letters demanded attention. He claimed responsibility for the murders, threatened more, and taunted law enforcement with a challenge. "Crack my code." A cipher split into 3 parts, each sent to a different newspaper: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. "If you do not print this cipher by the afternoon of Fry, the 1st of August 69, I will go on a kill rampage Friday night." It wasn't just a warning, it was a dare. 3 days later, the first solution came out from police or FBI cryptographers, but from an ordinary couple. Donald and Betty Harden, school teachers in Salinas, spent hours deciphering the puzzle, revealing a chilling message. "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The letter continued, describing the killer's twisted thrill, comparing it to hunting wild game. But there was one problem: the code didn't reveal his name. That, he claimed, would be in a later cipher. More ciphers followed. Some were shorter, like the one mailed with the Halloween card, containing just a series of strange symbols and the words paradise and slaves in an eerie cross formation. Others were far more complex. In November 1969, he sent a 340 character cipher, one that would remain unsolved for over 50 years. Cryptologists, hobbyists, even the CIA tried and failed. Then, in 2020, a team of codebreakers, David Oranchak, Sam Blake, and Jarl Van Eyck, finally cracked it. The message mocked law enforcement, denied the killer was the man they suspected, and eerily reinforced his love for the terror he spread. But one mystery remains. Another cipher, the so-called Z13, contains just 13 characters. It's short, simplemost, too simple. "My name is." It begins. But the answer, if there is one, has never been found. It could be a taunt, it could be gibberish, or it could be the key to unmasking the most elusive killer in American history. The Zodiac case was unlike anything law enforcement had faced before. A killer who didn't just strike in the dark but played a cat-and-mouse game with the public, mocking the police, taunting the media, and leaving behind cryptic clues that only deepened the mystery. From the moment the Zodiac's letters arrived at newspapers, investigators scrambled to piece together a profile. He was methodical yet unpredictable, arrogant yet elusive. His cryptograms, his demands for publicity, his boastful confessions, they painted the portrait of a killer who relished control. But despite his brazen nature, the Zodiac was a ghost, slipping through the cracks of law enforcement's grasp time and time again. One name has lingered in the shadows of suspicion for decades: Arthur Lee Allen. A convicted child molester with a troubling history, Allen fit many aspects of the Zodiac's profile. He was known for his violent outbursts, his obsession with ciphers, and his cryptic remarks about hunting humans. He even owned a watch branded with the Zodiac logo. But while circumstantial evidence stacked up, there was never enough to charge him. His fingerprints didn't match. His handwriting didn't match. And in 1992, he died, taking any secrets with him. Then there were the others. The school teacher with an unsettling fascination for ciphers. The career criminal with a disturbing resemblance to the Zodiac's police sketch. The Army veteran whose letters bore eerie similarities to the killers. Each suspect brought a fresh wave of speculation, but none brought a resolution. Law enforcement agencies faced insurmountable hurdles. Departments worked in silos, reluctant to share information. Crucial evidence was misplaced. Forensic science, still in its infancy, couldn't provide the definitive answers investigators so desperately sought. And the Zodiac, always watching, seemed to know just how to stay one step ahead. Decades later, the case remains unsolved. DNA advancements have rekindled hopes, amateur sleuths continued to dissect the cryptograms, and new theories surface with each passing year. Yet the name behind the infamous symbol remains a mystery, a faceless menace whose presence still lingers, haunting the pages of history, taunting the minds of those who dare to seek the truth. For decades, the Zodiac Killer has remained a ghost in the shadows of history, a faceless enigma, who not only evaded capture but embedded himself in the collective consciousness of the world. His crimes were brutal, his letters chilling, and his identity remains unknown. But perhaps his most lasting impact is not in what he did, but in the fear he left behind. Even as the case grew cold, the legend of the Zodiac refused to die. His cryptic letters, his taunts to the press, and his horrifying confidence became the blueprint for a new breed of terror. Films, books, and television shows have all drawn inspiration from his reign of fear. David Fincher's 2007 film Zodiac meticulously chronicled the case, immersing viewers in the same frustration and obsession that gripped the detectives who chased him. The movie was more than just a retelling, it was a stark reminder of how one man's evil could ripple across generations. Beyond Hollywood, true crime enthusiasts and amateur sleuths continue to dissect every clue, convinced that the truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. Online forums buzz with theories, debates, and new attempts to crack his unsolved ciphers. In 2020, a team of codebreakers finally deciphered the Zodiac's infamous 340 character cipher breakthrough after more than 50 years. But even that revelation only deepened the mystery. The decoded message was taunting, offering no name, no remorse, just more riddles. The fascination persists because the Zodiac was more than just a killer. He was a psychological predator who played with the public's mind, turning fear into a game. He made people question whether he was a lone madman or something worse, an idea, a symbol of chaos that could exist anywhere, in any era. Law enforcement has never officially closed the case. DNA advancements, new forensic techniques, and fresh eyes continue to probe the evidence. Every so often, a new suspect emerges. A fresh theory reignites the conversation, and the question resurfaces. Is it possible that the Zodiac is still out there, watching, laughing at the world's obsession with him? More than 50 years have passed, yet the Zodiac's presence lingers. His crimes may be history, but his story is far from over. As long as his name is spoken, as long as his letters are studied, and as long as his ciphers remain unsolved, the Zodiac Killer continues to live not as a man, but as a mystery that refuses to die. More than half a century has passed since the Zodiac Killer first struck, yet the fear he instilled and the questions he left behind remain just as haunting. His victims were real people, stolen from their families, their futures cut short by a man who seemed to relish the chaos he created. For investigators, the Zodiac case became an obsession. Decades of chasing leads, analyzing letters, and testing DNA have yielded theories but no definitive answers. Forensic advancements have cracked cases once thought unsolvable, and yet the Zodiac endears a ghost in the margins of history, always just out of reach. But the impact of the Zodiac extends beyond the crime scenes and evidence files. He cemented himself in American culture, inspiring books, films, and endless speculation. From armchair detectives to seasoned criminologists, people still pore over his letters and ciphers, searching for the one clue that could finally unmask him. The question remains, why does this case continue to captivate us? Is it the mystery itself, the unanswered ciphers, the letters filled with chilling boasts? Or is it something deeper, a reflection of our own fear that evil can hide in plain sight, that the person responsible for such horrors could have lived among us, unnoticed, unpunished? Perhaps the most unsettling truth is this: the Zodiac could have been anyone, a neighbor, a teacher, a coworker. He may have walked past his own wanted poster, blending into the very city he once terrorized. If he's still alive today, he's watching from the shadows, knowing he was never caught. If he's dead, his secrets went with him to the grave, forever beyond our reach. Will the Zodiac killer ever be identified? Or will his legend outlive the man himself, an eternal puzzle with no solution?